This is one of the rarest physical copies of Monster Hunter out there. As you can see, it's rated M for mature, which has only happened once and never happened again, and it's with this copy of Monster Hunter. Basically, it is a public beta, volume 1, as you can see here, version 1.01, and it is not for resale. So please, don't ask me how I got this copy of Monster Hunter. I'm not at liberty to say, but it has a lot of cool things about it that I do want to show off. The first Monster Hunter game already has a lot of quirks about it that I can go into great detail discussing, but to have this earlier build to show you guys is quite the treat. This copy of Monster Hunter was given out to select gamers in early 2004. Public betas and demo copies are distributed with other games at the time in a variety of obscure ways. One of them being, if you were in the Sony Game Advisory panel, you would get sent a copy of this along other great titles like SOCOM 3 US Navy SEALs and SmackDown vs. Raw. It's possible that somehow at one point this demo disc got into your hands, and somehow it got into mine as well. Probably the most curious thing about this copy of Monster Hunter is the question of why was it given its mature rating? It does seem at one point they were okay with this decision. Resident Evil and Devil May Cry at the time were rated the same, but before the game officially released in the West, they made some changes to make it rated T, and it's been that way ever since. Funnily enough, the same warning at the beginning of Resident Evil and Devil May Cry comes up when you boot up Monster Hunter, and this warning remained in the rated T Western release of Monster Hunter as well. Just what is this disc hiding? Was its M rating really warranted? In today's video, we're going to explore the contents of this fascinating disc and see exactly what it has to offer, as well as talk about some other aspects when it comes to the first Monster Hunter game and its various early builds. There's a lot of questions when it comes to this rated M disc in particular. How much content does it possess? How many monsters are there to hunt? And ultimately, how different is it really? Before we get into the game itself, there's a particular video within its gallery that is worth going over because it has even older footage of Monster Hunter 1's build within it. Now, this video isn't unique to the disc. You can also check this out on the official Western game as well, but I figured this video would be the perfect opportunity to look at it. This is the E3 showcase of Monster Hunter 1. It starts out with some hunters running, one of them dashing through what seems like some lightning surrounding him. Hopefully he's not being chased by a white Fatalis here. The most striking thing to me in this video is the early rendition of the base camp. Seems like it's made of steel. They end up going with a much more rustic look in the official game. Here we can see what was perhaps a more cartoony emote system in the works back in the day before they eventually settled on gestures. I definitely thought this early version of the crosshair was some sort of health bar for Rathian. Silly me. Pay attention to how much sauce gets knocked out of the hunter here. A little excessive, don't you think? There's a fair bit of violence spread out throughout this trailer. This shot of Rathalos definitely stands out to me. Perhaps this will clue us in to the reason why this particular demo disc is rated M. And lastly, there's this cool shot of Lao Shan Lung at the end of this trailer. I don't really have much to say about this, I just thought it looked badass. Well, that's it for the special stuff in the gallery. There wasn't anything particularly noteworthy in any of the other menus. They're essentially the same as the official Monster Hunter. I will say the Lao Shan Lung music in the options menu is always incredible, yet startling to hear. Also, the PS2 save icon is the same as the official game, except it's called pub data for this particular save file. Getting into the character creation screen, there are a couple of differences. A lot less hairstyles, faces, and voices, but that's to be expected for a demo/public beta. Once we make our character and strike a dashing pose, we're now inside the lovely Kokoto village. Again, not much is different here compared to the actual game. The NPCs roam around and have tips to say to you. The legendary sword is in its same resting place. Much of the game starts the same within this disc. After talking to the village elder, he asks me to do my first quest, kill some Aptonoth and gather some raw meat. This is where the biggest visual change is compared to the Western release, and it's not the base camp. Sadly, it's not as goofy looking as the one we saw in the E3 trailer, but what lies ahead will make up for it. Before we see it though, let me show you what the blood effects look like in the official Western release of Monster Hunter. Pretty normal, just a smidge of realistic blood to get away with a T rating. Nothing too crazy. And now let's look at the rated M public beta. Wow, excessive. Yep, it seems that Capcom wanted to keep the insane blood splatters of the original Japanese version at first. It's just so brutal seeing all that coming out of a little sword strike on these Aptonoth. It's crazy. At some point, they decided they wanted to appeal to a larger audience with a T rating and tone the blood down a lot. Monster Hunter in the West got away with a little extra blood in future games since it was a lot more stylized, but as you can see in this game, they were going with a much more realistic approach visually, so our friends at ESRB were probably a lot more strict. Now, is this where the violence ends for the game? That was truly the question, playing it for the first time live on stream. I'm actually live right now with more cool Monster Hunter stuff if you want to check that out after this video. We progressed further into the game. As I finished these quests, I was starting to observe the differences between the game and the official release. There are some strange translations to certain things that end up changing later on. For example, fire herbs were called powder grass, and mealinxes were called felixes. I decided to buy the monster info books from the traveling salesman to see if there was anything interesting about them, and that spelling stood out the most. The merchant also doesn't ask whether or not he's in Kokoda Village first before you get to shop with him, unlike the official game. He also sells you far less info books and some of the items are different. There's a weapon with a different name as well. The shotgun Azure in the official game is called the shotgun Emerald in the beta disc. On the topic of weapons, the beta disc offers you all of the weapons you'd be able to craft in the official game at this point within the village. The weapons function the same with no big differences. Unsurprisingly, you still attack with the analog stick, which takes some getting used to. Another fascinating aspect about the beta disc is how the Veggie Elder interacts with you. Unlike the official game, he does not trade items with you or give you anything for free. Instead, he only gives you random pieces of advice before getting extremely mad at you and tells you to go get a job or something. He can spawn in random places within this area when you first enter, and I found that depending on where he spawned, he would have different dialogue. He also calls mealinxes felixes in one of the dialogue boxes as well. I wonder why this little dude is so pissed. In a similar fashion to the official game, we continue with progressing the 1-star village quests. In Monster Hunter 1, at least at this point in the game, you don't have a choice of doing key quests, you just gotta do all of them that's available. And that's what we did. We gathered herbs and combined them into potions, went searching for spider webs at the tallest cliffs, and had the pleasure of going fishing. We got another one, I'm getting better. Sushi fish! Knife mackerel! I swear to God, I only have 2 worms left. Stop taking my worms! These are only for the sushi fish. See, the reason they're called sushi fish is because you turn them into sushi. Oh, we got another one. Sushi fish. Big sushi fish vibes. If I get another fucking knife. In Monster Hunter 1, the timing for fishing, petting Poogie, and cooking steaks is so tight. If you have any input delay, you need to pre-fire well before you get any visual cue. And so, after some time, we finally get to our very first urgent quest. Slowly, we're approaching hunting a real monster. We just gotta get through this and do a couple more quests until we can fight Velocidrome, assuming the quests follow the same path as the official Western release. And so we go on our urgent quest where they show off the Velociprey gruesomely feasting on this Kelby carcass. This quest is simple. Kill 3 Velociprey. And that's exactly what we did. It's time to finally progress to the 2-star quests, but something is very wrong. Despite talking to the village elder and having the quest completed, the 2-star village quests weren't showing up. It should be unlocked. I have it unlocked the same way on the official copy. And then it hit me. That's all the village offered. Yep, not even one real single monster hunt. The public beta demo only offered the Velociprey quest, which had me thinking, did they offer any weapon upgrades or armor that needed real monster parts? After extensive grinding, I figured out that most of the equipment could be made and upgraded by just the stuff you can get in the first 5 or so quests, barring things like Kelby hides and small bone husks, which don't appear in any of them. Kutku scales are actually quest rewards, so anything that needed that was still craftable. I upgraded my Velociprey sword and shield to the max it would let me before, presumably, I would need parts that were unobtainable, since I couldn't face any real monsters. Disappointingly, there were no monsters for me to see whether or not their freaking heads would pop off. My thirst for a little violence wasn't satiated yet, so I at least tried to pull off one thing on stream that you could do in older games. If you attack with a slashing move, when a Velociprey jumps at you, with enough HP that it would die from that strike, you could actually slice them in half. I wanted to be a little dramatic, so I was using a greatsword, which in hindsight is a stupid idea considering how slow it attacked and how random the Velociprey's behavior was. After way too many attempts, it finally happened. Let's go! Yes! Now that was out of the way, I spent a couple of days testing various things out with the public beta disc until I was satisfied with how much I got out of it. However, there was one aspect of it I couldn't reach, and that was its online functionality. In the public beta disc, you could go to the town of Minegard and do some quests there. Presumably, this is where you could get certain materials I couldn't find in the village quests. There's only one video I could find that displayed online functionality within this beta. It wasn't surprising to me there wasn't that much footage of this obscure beta back in 2004, but this video did provide some useful information. I could see Area 5 is available, unlike in the village, which is the only place to get small bone husks, so that confirms my theory that the unattainable items for crafting were locked behind this online town. There's no proof, however, of any real monster hunts existing within this demo. Realistically, the quests within the online hub probably weren't much different than what the village quest offered. Nevertheless, it's cool that people could play online with each other back then, but unfortunately this feature is inaccessible for me right now. The only way to connect to the online functionalities of Monster Hunter 1 is with a copy of Japanese Monster Hunter, which can be English translated, while connecting to a private server. Since this is a Western copy and the official servers are shut down for it, there's no way to know as of now. But the fun does not end here, my friends. Come on now, I gotta put on a show for you guys. I'm happy to say I somehow got a hold of the digital copy of the European Monster Hunter beta, and this one is definitely wacky. First, it starts off with a disclaimer that the game is still in development, something the Western version of the beta disc lacked. This demo also included a control guide section, that's new. Jumping ahead to the character creation screen, there's even less options versus the Western beta, and here comes the biggest difference. Our hunter comes equipped with an iron greatsword and armor. It's strange seeing our hunter wearing actual gear at the beginning of the game. In fact, they let you swap out armor and weapons in the chest this time around because of one big thing, and that's the fact that you can't buy, craft, or upgrade anything with these NPCs. You're locked to only what they give you. The shop is significantly different. They offer entire potions to be purchased as well as psycho serums. If you don't know, when drinking a psycho serum, it reveals the location of a large monster on the map, which is entirely useless in this demo because the European demo disc only has one quest, and it's that damn Velociprey hunt. The same urgent. At least the Western one had some quests before it got to the urgent quest, but oh well. The quest is essentially the same, however, when talking to the Veggie Elder, when he speaks about combining items, they appear in blue, and also the mistranslations from the Western demo have been fixed. This version also allows you to attempt to go online, but again, the servers no longer exist. Maybe they offered 2 quests there instead of 1. So this version of the game was not rated the European equivalent of an M rating, and you can tell because of the blood effects. Much like the official Western release, it is nerfed to hell. No giant blood splatter at all. I'm actually surprised at the sheer amount of differences between these beta copies just based on the region. The only one I can't get a hold of right now is the Japanese beta disc. There are no physical or digital copies in circulation, at least to my knowledge, and that could be the most fascinating copy of Monster Hunter since it would be the earliest possible build of Monster Hunter 1. But we're not done yet, folks. The European demo has one more thing that's different than all of the other versions, and it is insane. Before I end off the video with that, I just wanted to mention that playing through Monster Hunter 1's beta versions has made me so intrigued and fascinated with this game that I want to deep dive into Monster Hunter 1 and make a video going over all of its interesting aspects, including its online functionality. I'm gonna actually try to make the private server for it work through my physical PS2, which requires a network adapter, Ethernet cable, internal hard drive, and more nerdy stuff, but expect a cool video about that in the future. If you'd like to see that, please subscribe, and again, I will be streaming that on my Twitch channel when the time comes, so be sure to give it a follow down below. Alright, the final thing I leave to you guys is, inside the gallery for the European demo disc is something called Special Movie. It doesn't have the opening movie or the E3 trailer from the other discs, just this. What you're about to see is completely unedited by me, it is the original audio and video, so enjoy the best cinematic experience European Monster Hunter has to offer. well, that was quite interesting. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time.